Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the contents in this channel. I'd like to start by wishing everybody a pleasant day, evening. I'd love to thank my subscribers, viewers, my new subscribers and viewers. I really appreciate y'all taking time in joining my channel. This is the case of the quadruple murders that took place in Moscow, Idaho. This happened on the 13th of November, 12th going on the 13th. Idaho, Moscow has Idaho Moscow College campus, university. Idaho, Moscow is a small place, small, beautiful town. Crimes are very less there. The last time a crime happened, a murder actually happened, before the quadruple murders, was 7 years before that. So you can clearly see that it is a safe town. 40% of the income of Idaho, Moscow comes from the students. So it is a student college town. Law enforcement got a call, actually more like 911, got the call that medical attention was needed in Kings Road, 1122 Kings Road. The reason is that someone was found unconscious. So the police and the medical team expected an unconscious person, because you call 911 when somebody needs medical help. When they came down there, they noticed that it was a quadruple murder. The coroner said that this was a very traumatic and bloody scene. It was a horrific crime. So when somebody is unconscious, you would expect to see blood. No, sorry, not if somebody's unconscious. If somebody is murdered and if there's a quadruple murder, if the coroner says it was a bloody scene, then it was a bloody scene. If somebody was unconscious and lying on their stomach even, it wouldn't make sense, because, trigger warning, blood would have been seen. We're not talking about one person, 2 or 3. We're talking about a quadruple murder here. It was either Zana Conodal, may she rest in peace, or Eaton, because this was on the second floor. The police came. The crime scene turned into be a big crime scene because the killer was on the loose. Unfortunately, the 4 victims were deceased. The 4 victims had a horrific death. Some of the details were shared through social media from people who lived there. And just hearing that from the coroner makes us believe that we have to understand that this was a horrific, bloody scene. A killer was on the loose, so obviously the whole of Idaho, Moscow, and I can imagine all the states near Idaho, Moscow, the whole of the United States, I'm sure, were in fear, which is obvious. You have somebody or you have some buddies who committed a quadruple murder. Nobody knew who it was, nobody knew what the motive was. Although we were told by the police that this is a targeted incident. That's what they believed at the start. Then you had the mayor saying that he believed it was a crime of passion. The students were horrified with everything that happened. I'm sure their parents too. So the university, the college, was kind enough to let the students go home who wanted to go home. And it was Thanksgiving. So many people fled, went home. It was a mayhem. But then what I find interesting is that when people are allowed to go home in a situation like that, you have to remember that the killer or the killers allegedly could have gone home too. So I found that a bit wrong, per se. That's just my personal opinion. Everyone was on the edge, basically. In Idaho, Moscow, the college tried to do as much as they can, I believe. They had securities to assist the children, follow them to their dorms or follow them to where they live, follow them to the school premises, which I can understand. Especially women felt like they were endangered because this was three of the victims were young girls. And then we had Eaton. May they all rest in peace. A couple of weeks down the line, a gas station came out with the footage to the police saying that a white car was speeding off and that they caught it on camera. We know that the police put out on the 7th of December, I believe, that they were searching for a white Elantra Hyundai, and they said from, I believe, which year model, I can't remember exactly, so I'm not going to say it, but the car that was being searched for was nowhere to be seen for a while. Then we had an incident. The incident was Bryan Kopacka, Christopher Kopacka, Bryan Kohberger was an interest in the police's eyes. Without us knowing, obviously, we're not entitled to know all the information. So the police stopped him twice. There was 2 traffic stops done, one in Indiana, because Bryan Kohberger was with his father and he was trying to travel back home. And this was on the 15th of December. While he was driving home, he was stopped. The first time in Indiana, the police spoke to him. The police told him that you're driving too close to the car in front of you, the van, so to take it easy. Things that I noticed from those 2 stops was, number one, how dirty Bryan Kohberger his car was from the outside. I understand it's winter. It's Idaho Moscow in winter. The car is going to obviously get a bit dirty. But it literally was muddy if you pay attention to it. It had a lot of mud and everything behind. And that was the first thing I noticed, and I was thinking to myself, where has this man been with this car? And why hasn't he got it washed? The police let them go. A couple of minutes later, Bryan Christopher Koberger is pulled up again. Although the FBI said it had nothing to do with them, that the Indiana police just stopped them. I don't believe so. And I don't expect the FBI to be telling us exactly what they're doing. The second time we were stopped, we noticed something very important. At least I believe it's really important. Bryan Koberger and his father was stopped because he was driving too close to the van. Usually the way that I notice we all are human beings, when we drive a bit too fast, we know automatically we're going to get stopped or something. It is just a natural thing that you would speak nicely to the police, try to make conversation, but not conversation that isn't necessary. Because people make conversation to avoid the penalty, obviously. But you don't want to be losing points on your license. But when you start sharing information that isn't necessary, that the police officer did not ask for, then it becomes noticeable. Bryan Koberger's father spoke about an incident that just happened in Washington Pullman. He said that the SWAT team, he heard, was doing a standoff there and there was an incident there and so on. Bryan Koberger lives in Washington Pullman, so I assume he would definitely know about that. The father was with him, so he would know about that. But to bring it up was kind of strange. And if y'all notice, pay attention, when Bryan Koberger is speaking exactly, his father speaking about that, you see Bryan Koberger giving his father this look. This look of like, keep your mouth shut. But the father didn't get it. Apparently, the incident happened right before that. I believe around 4 a.m. at night, a call was made to the police in Washington Pullman. 2 students, 2 women were kept as hostage by a veteran called Brent Kopacka. The reason I find it necessary to talk about it is because this all comes from Bryan Koberger is SOP. If he didn't mention Brent, if he didn't mention this incident, then there wouldn't be any point of talking about the incident. Put it this way, it was Bryan Koberger and his father that got us aware of the SWAT team incident. So at 4:30 at night or 4 a.m. at night, the police was called because 2 girls were held, 2 females were held hostage. When the police came, they saw it was a major incident. They definitely checked and found out who they were dealing with, that this is a skilled, well-trained military man, veteran with a Purple Heart. They tried to convince him. It didn't go that well, so they had to call the SWAT team. How many incidents do we know of that a SWAT team is called? It's not often. Just like here, the police will try and calm you down, talk you down. But if it gets worse, they call the M6 and all. They call the SWAT team and bigger people on you because to keep the public safe. Brent Kopacka, his area had a lot of students. You can't have someone pointing out a gun to the police and keeping 2 women hostage. On the other hand, may he rest in peace, Brent Kopacka, I feel really sorry for him, was suffering of PTSD. Flashbacks, nightmares, trauma, name it. This is someone who was from the military time who's seen enough. So he was struggling himself. It took 7 hours before a Washington Pullman officer shot and killed Bryan Kohberger. May he rest in peace. That incident is important, I believe, because you have to think about a person's behavior. Now, when I think about it as a therapist, I would understand, number one, he's somebody who is suffering of PTSD. So I can imagine how a communication or conversation like that would have gone within Bryan Kohberger, Kopacka, and the police. Because PTSD carries paranoia, many other symptoms, anxiety. We don't know if how he was feeling, if he hasn't slept for days, if he was drinking, if he was smoking, if he was doing anything. I'm not putting him down, may God rest his soul, but I'm trying to figure out everything out in this case. So, with all due respect, I'm already saying it. I've noticed many people get pissed off or get upset. But if you're going to do a case, or if you're going to trying to find out what happened in the case, we have to be mindful, respectful, but we can ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you'll never get the answers. That's how simple it is. So Mr. Kopacka fired at the police. They had no choice but to return fire. I would look at it this way, that they called the SWAT team because they knew they were dealing with a very advanced, skilled military man. So they don't want things to get out of hand, because not only is it danger for the officers themselves, it is extremely dangerous for the public. And you bear in mind this SWAT team incident with Brent Kopacka started at 4 a.m. at night. It went to the morning hours. It took 7 hours before the incident came to an end. What I find interesting in Brent Kopacka's case is it can be purely a coincidence, but I find it very interesting that the father of Bryan Kohberger mentioned his name. You could see it on Bryan Koberger's face that he didn't want the father to continue talking about that conversation. I could be wrong, but I'll never forget. I heard someone saying that how could have Bryan Koberger, how would he have known about this incident when it still did not come out on the news? And if that is true,